Hello class, in this week's lab I will be showing you how to install MySQL Workbench, how to use that tool to create databases and to query those databases. And finally, we're going to configure MySQL Workbench to target the remote server. And then after doing that, we're going to migrate your local database up to your server database. So there's two parts to this. The first is getting it to work locally and creating your database locally, and then finally we're going to migrate the database to the server and make sure that we can access it on the server. This is all set up so that you can build databases and also retrieve data using using PHP in your Nuts lab, right? With that said, let's just get started. Right. So in this lab, we are going to basically first install MySQL Workbench, and then we're gonna migrate the database from MariaDB to MySQL. The very first thing you want to do is go to you want to stop MySQL, so you want to open this examp up, and then you want to basically go right here and stop MySQL, right? Just like that, and it should stop it. Then the next step is to go into your examp folder, which is right here. See Windows examp, and then you want to go into you want to rename MySQL here to Maria, right? Because that is an instance of MariaDB, and then you want to rename that and then this should be no more MySQL folder. The next step is to actually go out to the MySQL community server page here, and then download the zip archive. For Windows, it is Windows. It is this one right here, MySQL 8.0.20, and download that. All right. Once you download that, right? Why is this showing up? It's weird. Anyways. So once you download that, you should have because I copy and paste. Never mind. Okay, so once you download that, you should have that zip file, right? So if I go to downloads, so it should be something like this, right? And what so we could just do that. Let's just download it, and then I'll show you guys. So download, and you don't have to sign up for an Oracle web account. You just say no thanks, start my download, and it'll download it to your desktop, right? So just like that, and then I'll just extract it here, right? When you're done extracting, you'll have this inside the folder, and you just want to rename this to MySQL. Okay, just like that. And then you'll copy this, Control C, and then go to go to your C directory and go to examp, and then paste that right into this. Right, so it'll create a new folder here. As you see, it's the same thing. Alright, and then the next step here is to modify the Word doc. So, where's my... I don't have my Word document open up. Okay, so... Oh, it's Acrobat. Never mind. So, the next step is to go into... copy... You don't really need to do this step here, but you want to... go into, because well, you can do this. You just copy this you just copy this this INI file from here to to exam MySQL bin. So you're overriding that initialization folder. File, and then you just want to change this key. Let me show you my configuration. So you want to change that key, right? Which is right here in the MySQL D. You just want to change that. That key buffer 16 megabytes. You just want to comment that out. So you want to put a pound sign right next to it, and then close that up, and then you can. Before starting, you want to do. You want to make sure that you initialize it by doing this. By copying this whole thing into a command prompt. So you can type command, you can open up a prompt, and then just copy everything here and paste it in there. And then finally you just restart the XAMPP control panel and just go start, and it should show you exactly what you want to see. And then I think, right. So to verify it, all you have to do is go out to localhost, and then go out to localhost, and then phpMyAdmin. Wow, so localhost. Let's keep doing that. And then go to phpMyAdmin. Right, so if you go to phpMyAdmin localhost, the server type should say MySQL, and it should be server version, MySQL community version, and then your user should be root at localhost, and that's pretty much it. Your server should be 127.0.0.1. Okay. So that's it. That's how you connect to. That's how you migrate MySQL from MariaDB to MySQL, so that it works on your local machine, and whatever code you come up with will work on the server. If you don't do this step, the migration to the server will be might not work. Okay, so you really have to do this step. Again, I show here that you should show here exactly what you should see. Right, so. The next step is to configure your connection, your MySQL Workbench. Oh yeah, if you haven't yet, this was in Lab 1, so you should have installed MySQL Workbench already. If not, go here, and then you just want to download the 32-bit. You just want to download the installer here, right? And then once you install this. The first one here is a web-based. You want to download the non-web-based one, right? So if you do the web-based one, then it'll grab the whole package. That way, if you lose connection, your install doesn't hose up. Okay. So download this. Double-click on it, and it'll install itself. You might need to install .NET framework, but that just depends on how your computer is configured, and the installer will actually guide you through that, or refer back to Lab 1 to do that if you have to. All right. So once MySQL Workbench is installed, just go out to MySQL Workbench. Okay. So here you actually just want to go database, connect to database, and by default, right? So you actually want to go manage connections here. Okay. So you see, I have all these already, but you want to go to the new, right? So name that connection local. I'm gonna call this local 3 because I already have a local instance. But really, if you just leave everything in place like this, right? Because the default will be 102, 0101, and then 306. That's your local host. You can actually go localhost, and it'll resolve. And then there's no password to this, so you can say test connection. you'll see a successfully made MySQL connection here, and that is your local database. So you can close this after you're done, and then you go up to database and connect to database. You see I have local3 selected here, right? It's the same as my local, of course, right? So if I go local, connect it, and here you see I have all my tables here. You'll see that all your stuff comes up here. Now I do have this class and student database for my local site, but if you go here, this is what you'll be doing for your lab, okay? You'll be creating these tables here, right? So, with that said, we can get started on the actual lab itself. Again, this will show you how to do the connection, all right? And then next thing you do is create your database. So, creating your database, this is the table structure I want you to create, because this will be this will actually be part of your current site that you're running right now, and we'll be using this to incorporate it into PHP, and so this has to be built, okay? So after you're done with this, I'll show you how to connect to the server, and then deploy that code out to the server, okay? Right, so here's what you do. Here we're gonna create a new schema, okay? First of all, you want to save this, right? You're gonna save this query as lab6 SQL, okay? So I'll call it lab6 version 2 .SQL, okay? So since I already have a site, I'm gonna call it site2. Now to create a schema, just go create schema, and then we'll site2, and then you just press the execute here, and you'll see the results down here that my new schema is created. If I go to the left here and press this refresh here, you'll see that the site2 schema is created. Okay. Well, you can do this all through command line, but I'm showing you this tool because it's a lot more versatile and easier to use. So then the first thing you want to do is you want to create a table in here. And again, you can use a visual designer, or you can actually go directly through code, right? So so I'll show you the code version first, right? So, all right. So here you want to go this one select here, set the SQL editor name, right? So here you want to go use site2, right? Okay, and then create table is pretty simple, right? Okay, so so in order for your migration to work, right, you just want to use the if not exists keyword here, and you want to go site, right, and then site.user, right, and then you can just say hey, right. Now this will be your primary ID, right? So you'll say ID user int 11, and then you go not null. You want to specify that it can't be null, right? And then you know, go auto increment because you want this to automatically increment. put these underscore. Alright, so this key will increment every time you create a new table. And so when you create a new user, you don't have to provide this key. MySQL will automatically generate the ID, okay? And then your next field will be username, right? And then there'll be integer again. No, it'll be varchar. Again, refer back to your lab itself, right? Refer back to your lab. You want to match this, right? So username should be for varchar 45, role, energy, last login, and stuff like that. Okay. So varchar 45, and then not null. Okay. This shouldn't be a default value, so you don't need to specify that, right? And then password. Varchar. Now you'll notice that password itself is actually a keyword. So in order to eliminate keywords from your fields, you can use these backticks. That's the I can't zoom in on this. Preferences. I want to create. I want to make this a little bit bigger so that you guys can actually see what I'm doing. And you want to save this actually. Control save. Save as Lab 6 version 2. Okay. Alright, so make sure you save this every time you do these updates. That way, sure that did that, but okay, so 45. Right, so and then the next one will be roll. Varchar. Go int as well. Again, you don't really have to specify the length here, but you can say make sure. You can say not null here too, because you actually want to make sure that these are never null, right? Roll not null. Okay, and then last login, right? We'll call that a date time. Okay. Right, and then you finally want to set it active here. Again, these are keywords, so it's gonna fail because MySQL will bomb out on you if you don't put backticks inside these keywords, right? So active. Ideally, you would want to call this something differently. So use But here I'm just showing you this so that you can say you can actually create keyworded columns. But ideally, you want to name it something different. Okay. Again, you don't want this to be null. It's either true or false. Okay. And these constraints we're putting in is so that this provides us a way of error checking too, so that we want validated data in here, and by setting these constraints of not null, we're going to ensure that this is never blank. Okay. Then finally, we want to declare a primary key. And we want to make that the ID user, right? And then finally, when creating a table, you actually want to specify what kind of table, what kind of engine you're using. If you don't specify this, it actually defaults to this, right? Default to the NLDB, but and then the character default set is already in there too, so you don't really necessarily have to specify this all, okay? But I'm just doing it here for convention, right? UTF-8 MB64, okay? And this is how you would create. And that's it. So after you do that, if you execute this and we refresh it again, I'm sorry, this should be MB4. So let's try that again. So again, you don't really need to have this. So your warning messages here is just this, right? It's saying that this might not be, this will be deprecated in future release. So you don't really need to provide this, right? So now we refresh this. I should have created it. Interesting. Oh, because it created. Because we need a site 2 here. It's my fault. Right, so boom. There you go. Your table is created now. So you can actually go and see the columns on the left here. And then there's really no indexes that we created yet, but your primary key here is your ID user. Okay, so all of this will be shown on the left here. This is really useful information, right? So yeah, so the next step is to create your again, you want to use this create table if not exists. You also make sure you put this in here, because when you do site migrations, it doesn't, so that it doesn't override it. Okay, that address, right? You just want to default this to that, so you just copy and paste this on here, right? And then after you do that, you can go. So with your address, you actually want a foreign key in here, right? So you can say the address. By default, in the convention, you can just go int, and then you can say, hey, not null, right? Again, you want this to be auto incremented. Okay, the next one, you can go let's say ID user. This will be your foreign key, right? So not null, right? And then you want this to just be that. And then you want to have an address type because there's multiple address, right? So the address type itself is varchar. We can actually have a separate table for it, but we're not going to do that. It's just going to complicate things, right? So this will always be not null as well, right? And then you want to have an address. Varchar. And with an address, you want to have a limit of 255. Because there's a lot of alright, so city, right? So by convention, you want to make everything lowercase, right? Because if you don't make everything lowercase, then you're going to confuse yourself later on. Because MySQL is really picky about casing when you actually do your queries. So you want to make everything lowercase so that you can just call a query based on lowercase. That way you don't. That way you know that's not the fact that you're calling your query wrong, right? So if you make everything lowercase, then by convention, everything in the database will be lowercase, so you never confuse that. Right, so zip has only a varchar of 10 or 11. And finally, we have this concept of, is this a primary address, right? So we want to say primary. Right, so you want to say, is this primary address? And then use as a bit. Right, and then not null. Then finally, we want to set. Again, it's backticks, not quotes. Okay. Then finally, we want to set the primary key equals to add ID address right, just like that. Now instead of this, we can just go is primary, right? So that we don't have to worry about the backticks. Okay, primary key, ID address, right? And then let's say index. We're creating an index here so that we search for the address, right? We can call this index a user address. Now this is entirely optional, of course, creating an index, right? But you could do it too. Add the user. That way it sorts the index. Again, this would be backticks, but we don't need to do that. We just want to do that. Alright, so send in and we want it visible, right? And then you want to set the constraint. User address. Right, constraint user address. Okay, it's a foreign key. Again, you can read up on all of this in your book so that it's so you understand why we're doing this, right? All these are also in your labs, but if you foreign key, okay, and then we'll set that to ID user. again, this table references the other the user table we just created. So we're gonna go reference site2 dot user, right, and then again at the user, right, and then on. Probably you want to go on update. Just say no action, right? So if you can set it so that when you update something it deletes it, but we really don't want to delete anything here. Delete no action. Okay, just like that. Okay, you don't need a comma there. Alright, so make sure you have all of this. Cross your T's, dot your I's, and then you can execute this. And what does this do? Well, when we refresh this, you have your address, right? The columns are here. You'll see that your foreign keys are triggering here. Okay, just like that. Alright, so this is creating through code, right? So the next step is you want to save this again, right? Alright, make sure you keep saving these, alright? So I'm going to leave you here. Create the other tables, just like this. Again, the naming doesn't really matter. You can call it anything you want, really. But just ensure that you know what you're doing, right? So I'll be expecting to see the other tables created along this fashion. So we've created the user, the address. So your task is to pretty much create the site, the profile, and then the email and the phone. Okay, so these should all have foreign keys to the user. Just like we did here, you pretty much want to replicate this code here. Okay. So, but the index name will be different, right? So you want to call that, like, if, for example, if you create a profile, this would be profile, right? And then the constraint itself would be called user profile. And again, they all reference the same ID user based on our layout here. They're all supposed to point back to the user here. Okay, so I'll be checking your. I will be checking your code. Generated based like this. I'll show you an easier way to do this later on, but for now, I want you to go through the exercise of creating tables using MySQL, a script, and create these tables. And by the time you're done, it should look exactly like this, right? So you have your address, and then your email, phone, profile, and user here. Okay, so you should have 5 tables. Matching the generated script here. I mean the diagram here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. For this lab, you just create these tables. Okay, and then the next step is migrating this over to the remote server, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that, how to actually connect to your remote server. So again, you have MySQL Workbench here installed already. So you want to go to database, and go to manage connections, okay, and then you go to new connection. So I'm gonna connect to my demo site, right? And then you want to change this connection method to standard TCP over SSH, right? And then so what I want to do here is I want to actually change this to SPC. I'm sorry. Right, and then I'm going to change the user to my demo user here. Alright. Right, and then I want to store the password in the vault, so I'm going to go, hey. So store that password in the vault, and then I just want, you don't have to worry about this at all, right? So, and then this host name, you would change to the local host, okay? Make sure you change this to local host, okay? Because that's, on the server, you're logging as your student account through SSH, okay? And then you just want to, on that server, you want to say that you are on the local host of that server already. So you want to leave the local host, and you want to change it to local host, and you want to change this server port to 33. You're gonna leave the server port to 3306 because that's on the server. That's where MySQL is installed. Okay, and then finally you want to again add this into your use your SQL Server. Well, your DB username, okay, which should be the same as your student account, okay, but the DB password is different. So you want to copy and paste your DB password and store it into the vault here, okay. Once you store that into the vault, you want to press test connection, and as you can see here, that this is successfully made through SSH. So I tunneled into the server through SSH and then connected to MySQL, and you'll see that it's successful here. Then you just want to close this, right? And then you want to go to the database, connect to database, and again, it defaults to the last one that you have. So this will go to directly to my demo 2, and then when I connect here, my instance is pointing to my demo site. So, well, my student account site, right? So, again, I have this test table out there, right? So if I go select 1,000 rows, see, I'm actually querying against the server now, all right? So with that said, what you want to do here now is basically copy this. So that's why I had you save this on your scripts here. You can just go copy this, and then go to your demo 2 instance here and paste it all in here. Once you paste it all in here, anyways, once you paste it all in here, again, you need to do the schema. So if the schema doesn't exist, so you actually let's say here, let's say, so I don't have a site here, right? So I want to change this to site. So site 2, change it to site, replace all. Okay, so all of those should go point to the sites database, and since my site doesn't exist on the local here, I need to create a schema, right? So I can go create schema, and then only if it does not exist. So if not exists, site default, right? And we'll go character set. Again, it's always a good idea to check to make sure that schema doesn't exist before you actually do it, right? So if you do this, then you ensure that the schema doesn't exist first before you create it. So I should be able to just execute this. So one thing is that on the server you don't have access to create a schema, so you basically can just go can ignore the you can pretty much comment out this code, right? So just like that, and then you just execute this. Huh. Interesting. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna delete this. So on the server, you actually don't have a concept of a site per se, right? So because everything on the server will have a singular database, and that's how you're running into this issue, right? So you don't want to have that site keyword in there, and hopefully this works, if I remember right. Oh, sorry. So you can say use this database and then create it. Oh, there you go. Okay, so keep in mind that on the server itself, because you have one database on the server for yourself, you won't be able to create a new database on the server. Okay, so so what does that mean? That means you want to get rid of all of the site dot user or something like that. How we did it on the local here. So so ideally you want to change this to get rid of all this. Okay, so you get rid of all the stuff here, right? The site dot here, then this code should work on the server, which is what we just did earlier. We changed all of this, right? So again, and this use site 2 is locally, but on the server here, right, we want to use your student account here, right? So you won't be able to access any other accounts. So you want to have this use first here, and then that tells MySQL to use this database. All right. So and once you do that, you should be able to create your tables with no issues. Okay. So you're always going to run into issues like this when you do migration. So this is part of it, right? So if you actually go through and use the Visual Designer, it will append that it'll append that schema onto your tables here, and you'll end up with like that the areas that we saw down here, right? So like this, it's saying that you can't create a table here because you're denied because you're trying to create a table for user on a schema that doesn't belong to you. Okay, and that's pretty much it for this lab. So what I'll be expecting from you guys is that when I log into your remote MySQL account, I should be able to see all of your tables there. Okay, so I should see all 5 of these tables. All right, and then in the schema here, the columns here should match the diagram that we have here. Okay, and keep in mind that you want to make sure that you put in the references and stuff like that, right? So if I go here and let's say site, I go what was it? Database. I can go reverse engineer this site, right? So let's say I want to reverse engineer my local site, right? Next. Now I just want to do the site. If I reverse engineer this, right, I should see the same exact layout. So for example, if you look at my user here, right, it looks exactly like that, right? So so it should look exactly like this, okay? And that's because you created the tables correctly, okay? So if you don't add the foreign keys, then you will not have this line here, okay? All right, so again, and you can do this to almost any database that you have. You can reverse engineer it into a diagram just like this, okay? And yeah, that's a cool part about MySQL Workbench. You can do something like this, and then you can also, yep, you can actually reverse engineer the MySQL database as well. So it just depends on what you want to do with that tool, but you can pretty much do something like this. But make sure that again, you could forward engineer it too. So you install forward engineer, so all of your updates here can persist to your database too. And you could definitely design your tables based on this. But keep in mind that if you do use the designer to do your tables, right, you'll end up with conflicts when you do the migration. The same conflicts that we saw in our code, okay, when we were doing our code. So it takes a little bit of know-how how to use this, but really I want you guys to go through and just create your tables like this. Don't use the appender. As long as you have the site too, then you're targeting the right database, right? Or the site, then you're targeting the right database, and just create a table. You see how this is highlighted in blue here? Well, you see how the text here is blue? Well, that's a keyword, right? So in order to avoid conflicts, then you can just say user account or something like that, right? So that MySQL doesn't confuse the two, and then you don't have to use the backticks. Same with password, same with role, okay? Because password itself is actually a keyword within MySQL, okay? And that's pretty much it for this lab. It's fairly straightforward it's really straightforward if you do it right. So yeah, that's the end of this lab. Email me with any questions you have. It should be a fairly straightforward lab. Really, it's just creating these tables. Make sure that you understand the language used to do the creation here. And this is our schema creation portion. So once you finish this lab, the next one will be focused on actually using PHP to connect to this, and yeah, using your site to do updates to the database. And of course, something like this will be expected in your projects. This is a framework that's used widely across almost all applications, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys.